Okay, I see the number of people that are trickling in has kind of slowed down a little bit. So we'll go ahead and kick this off, and we'll let everyone kind of join in as they get in here. But I appreciate everyone showing up to the August virtual Tableau user group. I hope everyone's doing pretty well right now. I know we've got a wider audience for this, so I believe this is going to be Texas wide for now, and even I believe we'll have some West Coast people join over here from Seattle. So if you're one of those from Seattle, welcome right here. This is not just Texas content for sure. Right now we'll be talking about Tableau as a wider topic today. So yeah, I appreciate everyone showing up. Let's go ahead and just kind of kick this off, and we'll be kind of on our way today. So first off, this is me. I'm Stephen Shepard. I'll be kind of your MC today. That's my face on the screen right there. I am the Tableau Professional Services Manager at Zeomatrix. We are a gold level Tableau partner located in Austin, Texas. And we've been a partner for about 5 or 6 years at this point. And so yeah, we essentially just do end-to-end working with Tableau. And I previously, before this, worked at Tableau as a solution engineer. So been pretty involved just with Tableau. I use it in my job daily for the less foreseeable years right there. And just so you can kind of get a little bit of sympathy towards me, I used to be a former high school teacher. So I know school's starting up, and I know some of us parents are starting to essentially become our children's teachers here this fall right here. So good luck to everyone kind of going through that endeavor right here. Today's agenda, let's go ahead and just kind of show what we're talking about today. So essentially 3 to 3:10, we're going to be doing introductions for the day here. So kind of just walking through kind of what the rest of the session here looks like. 3 to 3:30, we have James Parsons giving us a talk about the journey of a Tableau support case. So for any of you who have ever put in a support ticket with Tableau and just kind of wondered, like, where is it? Where does it go? Is anyone reading it? What's that process like? James was formerly at Tableau on the tech support team. He's now a Tableau evangelist and Tableau trainer on here, and he'll be a great resource to kind of hear from, just to kind of understand what that journey looks like. And we'll definitely open up a few Q&A questions for him if you have specific questions from him. Yeah, should be good. And then at 3:30 to the rest of the session, I will be giving a talk about Tableau's new data model right there. So if you have upgraded your Tableau product to 2020.2 or even 2020.3, which just came out yesterday or the day before, we're about 24, 48 hours out from the latest release right here. So if you have upgraded and worked with those newer models, you know that the data connection process has changed a little bit. Right there. And so I'm going to kind of give us an overview and dive a little bit deeper into what exactly has changed, what hasn't changed, and talking about Tableau going from a physical data model to a logical data model, and kind of when we use one or the other right there. Okay, so that'll be the second half of the session here, kind of just doing a little bit of a deep dive, and then afterwards, we'll close up the session at 4 o'clock. What we're going to do is essentially me and James and a few of the other panelists will actually kind of hang on the line a little bit after 4 to answer any questions that you might have that maybe you didn't get answered during the Q&A process, or just putting it in chat sometimes, just, my question's too big to go into chat. We have a lot of those right there. So if you want to kind of hang out afterwards, almost like an office hours with me, James, and the rest of the panelists afterwards, we can definitely kind of open that up and have a talk, but we'll essentially end the tug at 4 o'clock, and let anyone else hang back as we see fit on there. Alrighty. So that's kind of the overall schedule for this afternoon right here, and we'll do some closing remarks as to kind of what to expect from the next tug as well on there. Alrighty. All right. Well, at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to James Parsons over here to kind of talk about the first part here, which is gonna be the journey of the Tableau support case. So James, see you're unmuted right there, so feel free to take over, share your screen, and kick us off here.
Awesome, thanks, Stephen. For those that don't know, we used to work on the same floor, 23rd floor of the Austin office, so we'd see each other.
We did, yes.
Yeah. And we've seen each other at Tug since then, so it's been pretty cool. So I'm going to dispel some misconceptions and share some good conceptions about the journey of a Tableau support case. So I'm just going to jump into it. Some things you'll come across today. Hopefully one of these, perhaps all of them, but hopefully a few of them will appeal to you and something you'll learn about the Tableau support process. So I'll just have that up there for a few seconds so everybody can see them. So when I started at Tableau, most people when they start at Tableau, they go to something called Tableau Bootcamp, and they tell us a bit about the company and the history. Some of you may have heard of this history before, but I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about it. So there was a Stanford research professor named Pat Hanrahan, pretty sure that was his name, who was wanting somebody to mix data and graphics for a PhD paper. And one of his students said, yep, I'll do that. He later went to a friend and said, hey, I want to make some money doing this, but I don't want to like fund it. And that was the eventual CEO. So they were all involved during that early time. And out of that project and the Pixar connection was the professor. He worked at Pixar. So out of that connection came Tableau. A little bit about me. I worked at Tableau support for 3 years, from 2015 to 2018. I originally heard about Tableau when I was in New Zealand in 2010. And that time I was a ClickView admin for Merck Animal Health. And in 2010, I became a dual US and New Zealand citizen, and then I sailed away the next year. And I crossed the Atlantic twice in 2012. My good way of remembering that is I was on land in 2012 for 13 weeks. The rest of it was at sea or at anchor. And then I moved back to the US for the first time in 9 years in 2013. And since Tableau, I've been training people on Tableau and doing lots of sailing. I was out sailing last night, watching the Perseids. I saw 2 meteors or meteorites, whatever they're called. And then tonight I'm going out again. And then Friday I'm going out with somebody that used to work at Tableau. So tonight will be somebody that used to work at Tableau as well. So I have a question for everybody. If you don't mind finding where the raise hands thing is while you admire the joke here. I would want to know who has submitted a Tableau support case in the past, and then Stephen will chime in and just let us know roughly what percentage have submitted a case before. So go ahead and find your raised hand feature, which is probably in the chat area.
Keeping an eye on the hands right now, and we're definitely at least 25%. We're probably at 33% hands raised, I believe, on here. So yeah,
cool.
At least. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, somewhere 33–40% probably. That's not bad. I myself have submitted a case, only one case since I left Tableau, but yeah. All right, so on to the next. So a question that I had when I was preparing this from the guys was, does company size matter? And yes and no. At the base level, no. So when I was in support, we didn't look at company size or the Tableau footprint in an organization before taking a case. We just take it and dig into it. You can pay for faster service. There is an option for that. Your sales area manager or sales rep, they can talk to you about it. But when I was there, it was called Elite Support. And then after the Salesforce takeover, some things might have changed, or it could have just changed over time, just had an evolution. So that is a caveat for this presentation, is all the knowledge I'm speaking from is 14 months old. So some of it may have changed. So there was a really fun culture at Tableau support. This was a picture of a t-shirt that we had, and I just loved that it had kind of yarn looking data that wasn't really organized well, and then the cat astronaut did some magical things, and then boom, you got a biz. So case priorities, you might not see this on your side, but there are 5 priorities, and there's priority 1s, and those are reserved for Tableau isn't working at all scenarios. Typically in desktop, those are licensing issues. On server, if the server's down, and in Tableau, we'll jump through hoops to try to get it back up for you, or with you, I should say. And there are handoffs. I was taking part at one point in the handoff process, and we'd have Seattle and Austin handling the Americas, and then if we needed somebody to look after it after that, then it would go to the Sydney office, and then they'd pass it on to Dublin, and then it would come back to us. Priority 2 cases, these are urgent issues on Tableau desktop and server, things like errors and unexpected behaviors, and impacting lots of users. Priority 3, basically the rest of the cases. So how-tos, does Tableau do this or that? And I'd like Tableau to do this. That might be a little priority 5 there. Oops. The flow of a Tableau support case, it goes from tier 1 to tier 2, which will be on the next page. Tier 1 was the technical support specialists, and around 50% of the cases were solved here. And a goal for timing was a quick first contact, and then they would dig into the case, see if they could quickly identify an issue, and there were some pretty awesome people that did this role. They'd also be able to see some patterns coming in, and so they'd be able to raise an issue that might be impacting a lot of people and seeing a lot of cases for it, because we might not see that so much in tier 2. And they do a more in-depth search than customers can, including internal articles. And my joke about tech support, and it goes for a lot of roles, is sometimes we have jobs because our customers don't Google. So, some of the solutions are pretty easy to find, but it's always a nice parachute to be able to contact somebody and get a professional answer. So also they would gather logs, screenshots, and workbooks and pass it on to tier 2 if they didn't resolve it quickly. And they didn't typically look into the logs. Some people did WebExes in tier 1, some people didn't. And if you've ever experienced a wait for a response on a case, most likely it was between tier 1 and 2 where that happened. So on to tier 2. This is the technical support engineer, also senior or principal tech support engineers. A goal for timing for our level was, after we got a case, reach out to the customer every 2 to 3 days to touch base. And sometimes a more practical cadence would be established, like if we're waiting for the devs to look into an issue. And the tier 2 level is the last member of support you'll speak to. They'll be your advocate from there. And from there, we be able to call on some resources, even more documentation for searching. So things that the devs were involved with that tier 1 wouldn't be able to see. WebEx with customers, of course. Then we have, by the time I left, we had daily Kanban meetings to talk to our teammates and bounce ideas off. And we also had test servers. Sometimes you jump on somebody else's test server because they had 2018.1 or somebody else had 2017.1. If we did 2017.1 back then, it might have been 10 something. We'd also have tech leads that we could call on, and often the tech leads were former tech support engineers that helped out others a lot. And also the developers, of course. So I'm gonna the developers will be popping into the slides here and there. They have a very important role in getting some things resolved. And the bottom part is every issue I saw that came into support got a resolution. Sometimes that might be, it was by design, but you'd be told it's by design, and sometimes we get confirmation from the devs. But there's also errors and unexpected behaviors. We'd figure out if it was environmental, let you know how to fix it, or if it was something that went to devs, it would be fixed in a future release. And how-tos, we'd send details on how to do that, and enhancement requests, you'd get tagged in one, or a new one's created later, or created, sorry, and more is coming on that later. So a bug versus a feature, this is always a fun topic. Bugs, also known as an unexpected behavior or an issue or a defect. These are error messages or things that used to work but don't now, or just never. A customer has decided to try something that Tableau has never been asked to do, and it didn't work. So we had quite a few of those. It's amazing how creative the customers were in trying to get Tableau to do things. So some features, it might be on the roadmap to be in a future release. Like you want Tableau to have a viz and a viz, and that wasn't a thing for a while, but now it is. And some things, perhaps it's on purpose, like text tables not behaving exactly like Excel. There's a few reasons for that. And one is that we can't just copy Excel because that would be a copyright issue, but also Tableau wasn't really keen on text tables being the big thing that everybody go to. So they tried to steer people more towards visualizing it rather than just having numbers on a chart. And it could be both. It could be that there's a change. Oh, sorry, I lost my. Yeah, so the devs could have fixed something and then it altered the behavior on something else in an unexpected way. So kind of a feature, kind of a bug. So yeah, we figured out it's basically a bug, really. And there's no shame in asking the question if you like, well, it used to work and it's a little bit different now. So you can always reach out to support and ask if that's expected behavior now. When do bugs get resolved? New releases. So actually, it was always going to happen in the release. And then you'd have an issue ID and that shows where the unexpected behavior, also known as a bug, that got resolved. And rarely you would get a dev build. And this is where something was determined by the devs that could be resolved without, and if it was that important that it needed to be resolved for the customer, they'd send them their own private build and be able to get that. So I'm gonna pop over to the release page real quick. So here's an example in 22.4, sorry, 22.2.4 of some issues that were resolved. So I saw an interesting one here that was for LOD calculation where there was a constant in it, and after it was the data source had published, it had a different number. So that was pretty interesting. You wouldn't want to run across that. So this is like the internal number, but we also get it externally, and you can see when your issue got resolved. And I'm pretty sure customers would see the issue when we contacted them and just let them know it was being looked at. And when the new release comes out, to look for that issue ID, and their issue will be resolved. I'm going to pop back to this page later because there's something pertinent with it's probably the next slide. Yep, here we are. Release frequency. So there's different release types. There's the annual releases. That's the first number. So we just looked at 20.2.4. And then we have major releases, which is the second number. So that's the 2. And those are about once a quarter. And then we have minor releases, which is the last number. And those take about 3 to 5 weeks. The official line at Tableau, especially if you're looking to know when your issue is going to be fixed, is something along the lines of past performance doesn't guarantee future results. But in looking at past releases, the cadence usually falls into these categories. Something could change, of course, but it seems to be every 3 to 5 weeks stuff's getting released. And if you want to find a specific release, go back and try something else that's not. Like if there's an issue with the current release, you can go back to that page and find one that works for you, and you're going to download it. So rule of thumb at the bottom, using a .x.o in production is risky. This goes for most software. And there is a beta testing software, but it's only a minor group of customers that we get to test that out and that want to be in the program. But if there's an amazing new feature that you really want to use and it's really going to help your organization, you've been waiting forever for Tableau to bring it out, then go for it. So back to the release page, there was a new .o released just on Tuesday. And it doesn't say .o behind it, but if you were to go to the actual file, it shows you it's 2020.3.0. So these are some issues involved in it, and I'll get to that is something that's handy to provide. Articles. So there are knowledge-based articles and online help articles. There wasn't ever a manual for Tableau. Like there are in training classes, but that's about it. Things change so quickly that it's much easier to keep things up to date online. And where the articles come from, and what's the difference? So online help, it's usually with a new feature or a change to a feature. And more often than not, knowledge-based articles had their origins in a Tableau support case. I know I have created a few based off of customers that came to me with some questions, and then I published, or I didn't publish it, I put it through to the internal knowledge base. And enough customers were getting helped by that article that it became a published article eventually. So there's a team that looks after it, and they'll edit it a bit, and they'll take out any customer information or customer screenshots. Often they'll replace it with Superstore data because mostly everybody's familiar with the basic thing that you get with Tableau to have some fun with it. Or they sometimes use some other data that's more compelling as a use case. So enhancement requests, might be a lot of people's least favorite word. So these are things that you want to see in Tableau but aren't yet. So there's two ways to get these issues in front of support. One is to submit a case, that's the top one there, and that will be in an internal knowledge base article. And the more cases linked, the more it's on the radar of the developers. The second one is the Tableau community ideas. And this is the best way, I think, to get the devs to recognize what's going on. So Tableau community, it's full of really helpful people and people that like to do self-service and also really help, like they might provide a workaround. So if you find somebody in there, it could be a Tableau Jedi or a developer, then they might provide a workaround that might not be an official one, but it's, you can get around it by doing this. Best practices for submitting a case. So these are some really good things to do. Sometimes we go back and ask the customer to do this, but if you do it in your first contact with Tableau, we can, well, not me anymore, but Tableau support can really hit the ground running for your issue. So the big four: screenshots, log files, package workbooks, and steps to reproduce the behavior. Those things are amazing to get going on the research. And it does seem simple as far as a screenshot, but a picture is still worth 1,000 words. I'd get somebody to describe it. It's just really hard to visualize what's going on. And also the screenshot could give us other information, like what filters you have on it that could be making things look weird. Log files, you'll probably never have to look in the log files, but Tableau support is more than happy to, and you can send that on to them. And a packaged workbook. This is really, really helpful, because if you were to send us a packaged workbook and say, when you do this, then you get this result, then we can just do it and see what's going on. Some people have reservations about sending their data over to Tableau. It is pretty secure, but there is another option if you wanted to do some sample data, or just put some dummy data in and recreate the behavior and send that packaged workbook over. That totally works as well. Other good things to include, what version number or build number that I just saw on the other page there. And was the behavior encountered in a prior version? That's also a good note to include. Also, if something's happening on Tableau server and it's something, Tableau desktop has the workbook and you can test it out on Tableau desktop on the server machine, that can provide some insights on whether or not it's Tableau desktop that's causing the issue, Tableau server. It could be environmental, but it saves the troubleshooting stuff that happens later on. And another one is, does it occur on one operating system or browser if it's Tableau server or online, and not another? Good question that somebody was asked me when I was prepping for this. Are there good times or bad times to submit a case? So when there's a new major release, like a .0, like 2 days ago, that's typically a bad time. You usually get an email about a new amazing version that's come out. Well, so did everybody else. So the more people that are looking at that product, the more issues are going to get covered. So there's going to be more cases. The next one is end of quarter. This can be a bad time. There's lots of new customers, and with more users comes more cases. And then after Tableau conference can also be a less than ideal time. There's lots of amazing interactions that happen at Tableau conference. Some of them are sales reps get to talk to their customers face to face. They address needs, sales are made, and more users equals more cases. Another one is Tableau Doctor. This is something I got to take part in. Stephen, you may have at some point. We talk to somebody in person, look at their issue, and try to resolve it on the floor with them next to us. One was that I got while I was doing Tableau Doctor. Somebody wanted to reproduce a type of stock chart where it shows what's happening over the last 30 days, over the last 90 days, see if there's any big changes in it. And we got to do it in person. It was pretty awesome. Nobody had asked that question before. So that was an article that I made. I don't know if that one ever got published, but it was definitely available internally. Forgot the name of that type of chart. I really enjoyed doing that. And if the issue that you guys are looking at doesn't get solved there, then it becomes a Tableau support case, and there can be a decent queue of Tableau Doctor cases that takes people away from the normal queue, and it could back things up a little bit. Major holidays, especially over the Christmas holidays, these can be good, but could be hit or miss. July 4th might not be good. It depends on how many customers are away versus how many we're expecting. So, and generally, we see less cases coming in over the holidays. And of course, it's always a challenge staffing over the holidays, but if, sometimes it works out. And most of the time over the Christmas holidays, it does seem good. But then again, if everybody gets this note, then they might start submitting over the Christmas holidays, and it might not be a good time. But if you are submitting over the holidays, saying what your availability is like really helps the folks working the case to get in touch with you. Escalations. This is another common question. So if you really need your case looked at as soon as possible, and not just to jump the queue, there's a process for that. And you can contact your sales area manager. They've got training on it, how to escalate it with support. And some good things to include to assist your case would be the number of impacted users, and especially out of how many in your org, and how long it's been causing an issue. And if there's a security vulnerability, it's taken really seriously by Tableau. Like, they've actually taken down prior releases if there's a security like taken down from the website. Like, you'd still be able to use it, but if it was, it's one of those minor releases that'll, like, I saw something that was a .1, and then it got replaced by a .2, and the .1 is no longer there. Self-service, there's always Google. And most of the time you can type what you're looking for without putting Tableau in, and you're gonna find a Tableau article in the first few results. In a quick note, I recently Googled for something, found something on the Tableau community, and it was a broken link. I had to, a workaround I got was to take the title from Google, go into Tableau's website, and then into the community part of the website, and put it in there, and I found the article. So I think it has something to do with Salesforce in them restructuring the way the website is designed. So that might be a little bit of an issue for the short term. Hopefully they're working on getting those links so they work straight from Google. So some benefits to the Tableau community. The question you have, it might have been already raised, and you'll just do a search, boom, there it is. You're all good. You might find the answer in a few minutes rather than waiting for somebody from support for a day or two. And if it's new, then you can post your answer on the forum, and oftentimes somebody replies within minutes or hours. If you include your same thing, the best practices for submitting a case, if you use some of those for doing Tableau community posts, they can really help out. So if you include a Tableau or a packaged workbook, it's going to let them be able to play around with it and say, oh yeah, this is how you do this with the zip codes, or whatever the case may be. And there's a definite time benefit for how-tos for the Tableau community versus a Tableau support case. Again, it could take hours or minutes with the Tableau community, whereas days, or if it's something complex, it could be a few weeks for the Tableau support case to find a resolution for you. Some interesting info. So the most common cases, there was a question that came to me when I was prepping. Ideally, a common case won't be a common for long because the error will get resolved by the developers, or there's a how-to that gets published via an article, or the enhancement request is implemented in a release. Developers talking with customers. This is really rare. In 3 years, I only had this happen twice, but usually the developer will like, okay, I need to get some more information from the customer. It's easier for them to talk with the customer directly and try to understand the issue. A lot of times tier 2 can do that, and we're the advocate for the customer, but it's really awesome when a dev gets on there and like, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. And also at Tableau conference, the developers are basically rock stars. They have, there was in Vegas, they had a black shirt with a gold kind of gambling looking shirt. I forget what the name of the poke machine. That's the term in New Zealand. Slot machine, that's it. So they'd have like a slot machine look on their shirt. They were very recognizable. So, and people would talk to them all the time. It was pretty cool to see. And so my role at Tableau, I was in tier 2 support. I did desktop, then went over to server, and then lastly I did online for my last year and a half. And I was the first new support employee to join the Austin office. I wanted that window seat. It was also a good timing for me to be able to join like the next week. And then over the next few weeks, a whole bunch of people I met in the group interview went ahead and joined. So it was really interesting because they had interviews all day long. It was like an 8 to 5 thing. And then everybody from like 3 to 4, 4:30, it was like we all recognized each other from the interview. We're like, wow, what happened to the people before us? Were they no good? So it was really cool to already have that established rapport with folks that you just met during the interview process. I took over 50 workmates out sailing, and I was the tech support guy that knew everybody, and also the sailor guy to ask about Tableau online. And by the way, did I mention sailing? So here's a summary of things we covered, and it's time for some Q&A. And if you want to get in touch about sailing Tableau, especially online or data, feel free to get in touch.
Nice. All right, James, awesome job. We had one, actually 2 questions come in. One of them you actually addressed in your presentation, which is the broken links for the community pages right there. A few people have experienced those too. And yeah, I think you're right. I think just Tableau, just with the Salesforce acquisition, they're moving their community, like kind of forum service right there. So there's a lot of migration going on. So so your solution is perfect. I've done that before too. If a community link comes up in Google, but it leads to a broken link, I just take that same phrase and put it into the actual community page on Tableau, and I usually find the article that they are referencing on there too. So yeah, so there's that one. And then we had another one come in from Maria, who she wanted to know just kind of like what percentage of cases are solved or resolved. Resolved on there, because she says that she doesn't feel like she's had that good of luck with resolution. So she kind of wanted to understand what the percentage is with overall resolutions.
I'd say usually about 90%. But then again, it depends on enhancement requests. So if there's an enhancement request not really resolved, it's, we're going to look at in the future and might be in the future release. But generally, I felt most of them got resolved.
Yeah, perfect. All right, well, let's do this. If you have any more questions for James, because this is, I'm sure a lot of you, again, with a lot of people putting in support cases, feel free to hang out after the call. We want to get through one more talk here, and that way we can get everyone here out on time here. So just a silent round of applause from everyone's side of the computer for James right there. So awesome job at their really, really great presentation on here. I'm going to go ahead and take us into the back half of the presentation of our day today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. We should see just the title screen right here of the presentation. So yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, my name is Stephen Shepard. I'm the professional services manager for the Tableau side of our practice at Geomatrix, gold level Tableau partner. I previously worked with James, as he mentioned, same floor at Tableau, and then moved essentially just one block over. I said Geomatrix are one block over from the Tableau office in downtown Austin as well. So a lot of work on it. And the one thing I want to kind of focus on a little bit here is to kind of just give an overview on the data model, the new data model feature that Tableau rolled out with version 2020.2. So as I mentioned, 2020.3 came out in the last day or so right here. So I'll actually be using 2020.3. But for this talk, I'm essentially going to live in two different worlds: the pre-2020.2 world, and then the post-2020.2 world right here. Okay, so pre data model and post data model is kind of what we'll be living in on this end. All right, oops. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the kind of what we're going to talk about here. So we're going to talk about just kind of the issue, right? What is the issue? What was even the reason that Tableau felt like they needed to kind of change a few things up on the data connection side right there? Talk about the solution now that exists with the data model. And then kind of really what's big and what's on a lot of people's minds here is, what's changed and what hasn't changed, right? Does your life significantly going to change when you upgrade to 2020.2? Do you have to learn a whole new thing? If you've been using Tableau for years and connecting your data with no problem for years, is that completely just out the window now? Or is most of this really going to be, you can continue as usual, right? So we're going to talk about what's changed and what hasn't changed right there. And then of course, at the end, we're going to be doing some Q&A on here. All right, so data model, I do want to level set though really quick right here, just so we can kind of understand what we're talking about when we do talk about things like grain or granularity, okay? So when we talk about grain or granularity of a data source, we're talking about essentially the lowest level of detail that the data source provides on there. That's kind of the granularity of the data, okay? So for usually the big equalizer amongst all of us is Superstore. If we have used the Tableau sample data set Superstore that comes with Tableau desktop right here. But for Superstore, just as an example, the granularity of the data is at the product ID per order ID level right here, okay? I hear a lot of people say, that Superstore is at the order ID level, but it's actually a little bit more granular than that. And you can see the highlighted portion of the Excel file of Superstore right there. You'll see that everything in yellow right here is showing off one order right here. So the order ID is the exact same, but we're going down and seeing unique product IDs per order right there. So it's actually product ID per order ID level, okay? So that's what we mean when we talk about grain or granularity. We don't need to go any more deeper than that specifically right there, but just to kind of talk about what we mean when we talk about granularity or level of detail. Alrighty. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm gonna hop out and then I'm gonna hop into Tableau desktop here, and I'm going to hop into the pre-2020.1 model, probably the majority of what all of us are using still, right? A lot of us, it takes a version or two for us to upgrade to some of the more recent versions right there. So for those of you, on 2020.1 or on a 2019 year release or even earlier, pretty much anything before a few months ago, this is what it's going to look like, right? So I'm going to make a data connection and I'm going to bring out my orders table. So we're going to load up all of our sample Superstore orders data right there. But then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to, I want to understand the population of the cities that I'm working with as well from the data. So all of the cities that show up in my orders table right here, I want to understand what the population is and maybe do some per capita analysis on that, okay? For large cities, like of course we're gonna have more sales, but should we be doing better, right? What's the saturation in some of these cities? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring out my population table as well. And I'm gonna join them together. I'm gonna join them on city, on the city population, as well as state here, just because I know some cities show up in multiple states right there. So make sure that we're doing city and state. And there we go. Right there, and let's go ahead and do a left join right there. All right, so we're creating a data model right here. We've created a left join between my orders table and my population table, and we're joining on city. So what I'm gonna do now is head over to my sheet 1, and let's build out a view to kind of analyze that. So I'm gonna drag out my city to rows. I wanna drag out my sales over from my orders table, and we're sort descending. So there we go. We've got New York City there with the most amount of sales. Let's throw that label on there. And that's perfect. This looks good. But now I'm going to drag out my population just to understand, okay, of these cities right here, what population are we dealing with? So I'm going to drag population out to rows. And boom, you'll see that the numbers here are a little off. And when I say a little off, I mean extremely off right here. So this is telling us that there is about 17 billion people in New York City, right there, 17.5 billion people in New York City. Those of you that have been in New York, sometimes it feels like there's 17.5 billion people right there. So you'd be like, no, that's correct. But no, this is clearly off for a reason that probably a lot of us kind of understand, right? We know that because my orders table has New York City showing up multiple times, we're getting a lot of data duplication from my population. So it's duplicating this. So every single time New York City shows up right here in my data set, my population is getting multiplied by that amount. And with a population the size of New York City, you can imagine just how big that gets. Actually, we don't have to imagine. It gets to about 17.5 billion people right there. Okay, so that's the issue that a lot of us have faced with joining data in Tableau right there, is we're normalizing the data. And when we normalize the data into a flat data set, we're gonna get some row duplication, and that's probably gonna make some of this data inaccurate, okay? All right, now, what we can do with the new version of the Tableau data model, I'm gonna pop over to the new version. This is actually 2020.3, but just imagine this as 2020.2 and above right here. We're gonna bring out the same tables. I'm gonna bring out my orders table here, and it loads it up. And then I'm gonna bring out my population table, but as soon as my population table enters the data connection pane, you're gonna notice that this experience is a little bit more different. This is what Tableau officially calls the noodle, this orange connector between these two tables. So I'm gonna let go of the connection here. And you can see that Tableau now has a similar screen that we did when we created the join, right? Tableau wants to know, how are we relating these two tables? Alrighty, and so I mentioned we're gonna do this on city. There we go, okay. We'll go ahead and add state in there as well, all right? But we'll notice as we build this out right here, this looks good. So city and state right there. You notice that the Venn diagram is gone right there, okay? So the data connection screen already is a little bit different. And that's because we're not creating a join, we're creating a relationship between these two tables right here, okay? So what we do now is we drag over to sheet 1, and if I bring out my city field into rows, let's drag the same field out we did earlier. Let's go and grab sales. I'm gonna sort descending, turn it on. There's New York City with our sales value. But now if I wanna do the analysis where I'm looking at the number of people within each city right there. So I'm going to bring out my population. And we'll sort descending. And let's get rid of our nulls here for the cities that didn't show up. And there we go. That's actually pretty close to correct. We're using kind of the MSAs, the Metro Statistical Areas right there. And for the New York City Metro Statistical Area, we're looking at about 19 million right there. Los Angeles, the Metro Statistical Area, 13 million, and so on. We'll kind of go down from there, okay? That is closer to the correct number that we're expecting here, not the 17.5 billion, but closer to that 19 million that we're looking at. So Tableau, just by creating the relationship between the two tables, has kind of fixed that granularity issue, fixed that data duplication issue without any needed changes, okay? Those of us that have worked on this in the past and have had to deal with this in our previous versions right here with row duplication, you can already, I'm sure you're already kind of going through your head of the ways we went through to solve this, right? We would use level of detail expressions. We could write those to be able to figure out what the true number was right there. We could even bring in a second data source, bring in population as a second data source and blend, right? Create the blend relationship and have the two aggregations occur separately and then brought into the view right there. Okay, so those are two of our previous ways that we could solve this, but that's tough. That's tough to ask your users to, hey, go ahead and write a level of detail expression. You know, some of those advanced calculations as you're learning Tableau, just write an advanced calculation to fix this. Or blends, you know, blends can get extremely finicky. And not to mention when you blend data sources together, you're actually managing two separate data sources. You can't publish up a data source with a blend relationship. You have to publish both up and then recreate the blend whenever you open it up into a workbook. So with Tableau's new data model right here, you can see that we're actually dealing just with one data source that Tableau's connecting to. It's just now looking at the two tables as separate entities until we bring out the views from the field from the other table right there. That's when essentially the join or the relationship actually occurs, and it occurs at the exact level of granularity that we see here in the view. Okay, now to kind of pop back out to our presentation here, just to kind of walk through what this is right here. Let's again talk. This is Tableau's new feature for combining data sets. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not saying this is now the way that you combine data sets, right? Because we're going to talk about where did the joins go here in a little bit, okay? This is just a new feature to add to our ability to combine data sets, not the new feature, right? We also have more flexible data sources, meaning that the granularity can adjust based on the level of detail out here in the view, right? I just mentioned it earlier, but maintain fewer data sources. Now that the data sources you can create relationships between them, you don't have to necessarily bring in blends for a lot of the reasons you used to anymore. And again, the blends having to be multiple data sources that are published up to Tableau server or managed separately, this can now reside as one right there. All right, and then essentially what it's doing is it's using table context to calculate the correct totals. It's using the context and the granularity of the relationship and of the data in the view to be able to run this. Okay, so this is essentially where we're at right now. Is pre-2020.2, the data models consisted of a single physical layer where joins and unions are specified, right? That is the normalized flat data set that results from a joined relationship. Okay, so those of you that are creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 joins in the data modeling screen right there, Tableau is creating that all as just a flat result. It's a data set that's resulting from that. Okay. The tables are added to a physical layer to create one flattened table. So again, essentially denormalized. But 2020.2 and later, what we're doing is we're now creating a semantic layer that we're calling the logical layer. It's essentially a logical layer. And this is the view that we want to kind of focus on right here, is we have essentially two separate logical tables that actually can contain physical layers right there. We'll go into that here in a second right there. But the tables at the logical layer are not combined or joined at the data source. They remain distinct and maintain a level of detail. Okay. Yeah, logical tables, think of these like containers, but for merged physical tables. Okay, think of them like containers. They're going to remain distinct from each other until we bring them out into the view to be able to speak to them. Okay, so here's an example of like a very real what your data modeling screen can look at from previous versions. On the left-hand side, physical tables joined to other physical tables in the relationship. Whereas on the 2020.2 and later, we can create a physical join between tables where we'd like, but then we can also relate that logical table to another logical table that does not hard code that join together. Alrighty, so let's talk about some things that have changed. First off, the extract dialog box has changed. So if we hop into the new data model here, what we can do is if we go and just want to say, hey, let's go ahead and extract this data, you can see that up in the top section right here, it's asking us, do we want to take extracts of the logical tables or of the physical tables right here, okay? So of course, now that we're taking extracts, right? Or now that we're doing the data models, the extracts also have to abide by these new models that we're running right there. So we're now taking extracts of the logical tables separately and then being able to essentially relate them together on the fly right there. Versus what we had in the previous version right here, if we went and took an extract of our old model right here, we have the option to do one single table versus multiple tables, okay? So the multiple table extract is essentially kind of gone at this point. It's replaced with the logical table extract. Okay, right there. And then one of the nice things is, though, if you've noticed right here, is if we have multiple table extract in our older versions, you may have noticed that we were not able to specify any data source filters on that. The nice thing with our new data model here is when we have logical tables and they're kind of taken separately, we can still apply data source filters at each of the logical table levels right there. So I can go and you can say city. I can apply data source filters at both the city from my orders table as well as the city from the population table. Alrighty. So that's one thing that's changed that you might see in the new data model feature right here. Another one is the data pane. Okay, so this might be a huge difference when you pop into the new data model. Let's go and take a look. First off, let's look at the old data model here. Whenever we connect to data, very classic, right? Tableau divvies up your data into dimensions and measures, dimensions being your categorical data, measures being your numeric values you want to run aggregations on. And then between dimensions and measures, we're separating them into based on the table that they're resulting from right there. In the new data model, you'll see that everything is separated by the table that they're resulting from right there. You don't have the dimensions and measures headers for the sections anymore, okay? You may be able to see here on my screen, I don't know if you can see on my screen, but you can definitely, if you have a new version on yours, you can pop it in. But there is a little gray line separating my subcategory and my discount field right there. So within each table, Tableau is kind of putting a break between the dimensions and measures right there. And dimensions and measures are still very much a thing in Tableau. You're just not going to see the data split up that way on the left-hand side right there. You're going to see them split up into their tables because they are distinct tables at this point, right? One other thing that you may notice is missing is number of records, right? We do not see number of records anymore. And that's because number of records was a result of the physical joined data set that resulted from Tableau's combination of the data right there. So after the data was combined, all the joins came in, you would drag out number of records and see, oh my gosh, the data set blew up. It was 20,000 and now we're at 50 million or something like that. Alrighty, so that's no longer a thing because these are, again, separate data sources. Tableau is waiting to aggregate before they get brought in. So you'll see that orders and population, orders count and population count, these are actually bringing in the row levels, or essentially the number of records for each table right here. So the count of population is about 28,890. And the orders count is the count of records from the orders table, which this number, if you work with Superstore quite a bit, this one looks familiar. That's the 9,994, the number of records that exists in your orders counts right there. Alrighty, and then one more thing too that we'll show off here is your data window right here, okay? So the data window, if you go and actually click on view data in all of the past versions right there, you are taking a look at the flattened version of the data. So if you want to dive into the data and see, hey, what's making up this mark in Tableau, on the left-hand side, you'll remember that there was a summary tab and a full data tab that you can check out. With the new version right there, there's no longer a summary tab. It's actually a tab for every table that we've brought in into the logical model right there, okay? So because it's not a flat data source anymore, these are separated into different tabs to understand what we're looking at right there. Okay, now I know we're running out of time, so I want to talk about one thing here, which is the what hasn't changed right here, okay? just to kind of calm everyone's nerves here, what hasn't changed is the ability to create that physical joined model right there, okay? In the new version of Tableau, in the newer versions of Tableau with the data models, you'll notice that as soon as we brought population out here into the view, the noodle popped up, right? And it established that. But if we want to actually create an actual join with the tables, what we can do is double click on one of our fields here, or one of our tables. And now we're back to where we are, where we can actually create these hard-coded joins. I can join my people table to orders right there, make sure it's on the right one. And this is going to give you that, the classic existing view of Tableau right there. And then one more, which is going to be returns. And there we go. All right, we're joining on order ID. So we're creating these joins within the orders logical table. We're then just relating the population table to that resulting data set over here, okay? So it's super important for me to like calm everyone's nerves. Let them know the joins feature is not gone right here, okay? It's still extremely possible, which leads me to kind of like the overarching concept of what I want to make sure everyone gets at here is the new data model does not replace joins or unions. That's important to know. Joins and unions are an extremely important part of the data integration process, bringing data in and making sure that the values we're working with in Tableau are reflective of the actual numbers that we see in the data sets right there, okay? So we're not replacing joins. We're just giving you a new tool to help out with the granularity of the data on there. Alrighty, okay. And then last thing is what hasn't changed here. It is completely compatible with all of your older workbooks and data sets when you upgrade. So let's say you're on 2020.1 and you make the jump to upgrade to 2020.2, your Tableau desktop and your Tableau server, nothing changes. You don't need to do a single thing at all. Tableau is just going to, if it's a hard-coded join right there, it's going to migrate that join over like nothing has changed right there. It's not going to create a relationship where a join used to be. It's going to do you a favor and maintain that join on there. So that's one question I have a lot of people asking is like, do we need to completely revamp our data sources when we upgrade? And the answer is no. Okay. All righty. So that's it. That's kind of the end of this portion right here. I know we're a little bit at time. Does anyone have any quick questions before we kind of wrap this up and talk about what we're going to be seeing for next session? Alrighty, awesome. Well, as I mentioned, me and James will kind of hang out on this call for up to 30 minutes afterwards. So if you want to hang out and have some questions about the support tickets for James, feel free. If you want to talk a little bit more about the data model, we can talk about a little bit of what's actually happening, like how is Tableau communicating with the data with this new data model. We can talk a little bit more about that. I do want to kind of plug next month's TUG. So next month's TUG is going to be on September 10th, 2020. So feel free to block that out on your calendar right now. We will send out some information here shortly about what the topics are going to be and the links right there. But if you're just wondering what the future has right there, next talk will be September 10th. Alrighty, okay, perfect. I do have one question from David, who's asking if the blends will be going away. The blends do not go away. No, so there's still a few small reasons why the blends will still be used, and some existing workbooks are still leveraging blends. So I do not believe there's any plans to do away with blends at this point right there, okay? Just because separate data sources are still fine to have. There's a reason why you might want separate data sources and manage them separately, but then sometimes bring them into a dashboard and have them relate to each other. So they will not be going away, and I've not heard anything of them saying that they're going to do away with them. They're a pretty big part of a lot of people's workflow still. So I think we can imagine them continuing on right there. Alrighty, so let's do this. I appreciate everyone showing up today. It was an awesome day. James, thank you so much for presenting over here, and thank you for everyone here, the almost 100 people that showed up on this call today. We really appreciate the just community support, a lot of great questions, a lot of great feedback coming in through. So I really appreciate it. What we're going to do is we'll kind of sign off for now. If you want to kind of hop and take off, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you next month. And as I mentioned, me and James will hang around here for the next 30 minutes or so. So if you want to stick around and ask us questions, we might even unmute you and you can talk to us in person. We can do that as well. So how about this? Me and James will kind of give everyone 5 minutes to kind of trickle out, and then we'll talk to anyone else who's still remaining here. So I appreciate it, everyone, and we'll talk soon. Talk to you next month. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, Karen, we're waiting for questions. We're just hanging out for a few minutes.
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started. I know a few people have, quite a few people have left, aren't there? So yeah, let's, yeah, so thanks everyone for hanging out right here. So yeah, we have about 20 people left here. Hey Karen, how's it going? Yeah, at this point we can definitely use this kind of like just an after session, kind of like extra questions that maybe didn't get answered on there, or you want to kind of just dive deeper on there. So yeah, so let me go through. I know we have a few questions in the Q&A, so I'll make sure I'm going to prioritize them for the people who are still around right there. So let's see, like Luis or Luis right there. I'll kind of, there's one question right there that just asks, does the new feature, the new data model right there, does it affect sets and set actions on there? So the answer is no. It won't affect how sets are made or the set actions. That'll be done because those are done at the Tableau data layer right there. So so because those are still very much a part of just the Tableau metadata layer right there, Tableau's going to handle that just the same on that. So I don't see that actually affecting sets and set actions on there. So good questions there. Let me go through and see. So I'm going through the list here. So Gabriel, are you here, Gabriel? Maybe not. But someone did ask, you know, what are some of the issues that we may have using logical tables on there? So this is a good question right here. You know, of course, anytime a new feature gets rolled out, it's a really smart thing to ask, you know, like, why shouldn't we use this, right? So I do have a slide that I didn't get to right here, but we'll kind of go over this, and that's that you might take a little bit of a performance hit with this. So, you know, Tableau's really going to help out with just the granularity and you know, automatically adjusting the granularity of the data that we drag in there, so we don't have to blend or use LODs or anything like that. But it is important to kind of know what's going on. So this is a view right here. Let me go ahead and share my screen again here. Okay, so you should be able to see this beautiful diagram that I created here in PowerPoint right here. But what Tableau is doing is whenever we create relationships or use the relationships data model right there, what Tableau is doing is it's first sending it's all based on subqueries. So it's sending a dimension subquery first to grab all of the dimensions that are going to be necessary that are in the view right there. Okay, so I'm essentially, you know, earlier when I dragged out city to the view, Tableau sent a query just to get the city dimension pulled out there. So that's the first subquery that it sends. And then it sends a subquery for the aggregated measure, for each of the aggregated measures that come from separate logical tables right there, okay? So the measure subquery in this example right here, think about for that view where I had city, sales, and population, it sends a subquery to grab city from the orders table. And then what it does is it grabs the sales at the city level of detail right there. So it sends a measure subquery that aggregates the sum of sales to whatever dimension we have out there in the view. And then it sends another measure to the population table that aggregates the population to the city level of detail that we have. So there's essentially 3 subqueries that are getting sent in there. And for some, like, you know, for large data sets, you might see a little bit of a performance hit when you're working with live data right there. So where it does help out with the granularity of the data because of what Tableau's doing with the subqueries and so on, you might see a little bit of a performance hit. So definitely test them out just to see, right? Test it out and see, does this make sense from an end user standpoint? Are they getting the experience that they want right there? All right. Oh, David did also ask, you know, will this allow filtering of the tables before the join happens? This has been a reoccurring issue that I've had to tackle. That's actually that's what should be occurring in this dimension subquery. David, right here is the dimension subquery is actually sending and bringing in the dimensions that are in the view and the dimensions that are not necessarily in the view, but that are being filtered right there. So it's sending it's applying the filter in this dimension subquery as well right there. Okay, so it should be, you know, again, give it a shot right there. It's, again, Tableau's doing a lot behind the scenes right here. This is a very high level explanation as to what's going on right there, but the filter of the dimensions should be taken care of in that dimension subquery. Right.
So Stephen, there was a question that David asked about data anomalizing, and I answered it via typing. I started doing a live answer, and I figured out that there was a microphone there, and I thought I was answering it for him. But ARX
Oh,
and
yeah.
then are great looking tools. I provided a link that has a little review on them. It's in the answer portion of the Q&A.
Yeah. David has a few in there. Right here. Oh, and David was talking about the extract filters happening before the logical layer. So the extract filter should occur as the logical layer is getting built on there. So that should, the extract filter should take place as the logical layer is getting built right there. So it should happen. I'm not necessarily sure if that's some of the issues that you've run into right there, but the as long as you're taking an extract, that's gonna, you know, if we're thinking about the Tableau order of operations, right, the extract filter is the first filter that gets computed, the first computation at all that gets computed right there is that extract filter. So so that should be good to go right there. Yeah, Daniel, I kind of addressed like the big limitations right here. You know, as far as like limitations go, the performance is something to keep an eye on right here. Again, performance is usually pretty good and can be pretty good, but also if you just throw a lot there, you might hit into a little bit of a performance bump right there. And then while this works, this new data model feature works great for fact tables relating to dimension tables where the granularity is changing quite a bit. Right there, I understand from people who've tried this before that fact table to other fact table relationships hasn't worked out that well right there. So I would say this is mainly designed for that fact table to dimension table relationship right there. And you might run into just some issues or just not desired results for fact table to fact table type of relationships. Yeah, and Lewis asked again right there. So yeah, let's say you upgrade 2020.3 and your previous workbook in 2020.1 had joins, unions, blends. Could you change any of them into a relationship? You absolutely could. You know, you'd essentially have to recreate the connection and then just replace the data source right there. But the answer is yes. Yeah, it's not going to change your. It's not going to change the data source connections, joins, unions, or anything for any older workbooks. But if you're now thinking like, hey, I've had to struggle with this flattened out, you know, 20 million record join. I think this data model might help out right here. Then feel free to go and create the new logical data model and then just swap out the data sources in that workbook and give it a shot right there. So you definitely could change them into a relationship. And then David, another question here, which is the view data was sometimes very powerful to find out where you had to do an LOD or aggregation. This is something that will still allow this within the physical layer below the logical layer right there. So I'm just assuming that you liked the view data because you were able to see where the data duplication was happening and so on right there. So, and I agree, same thing for me. I would hop in there all the time if the data looked a little, you know, screwy to me. I would go in there and just poke around and see what it's looking at right there. So at this point with the logical layer, you aren't able to see the flattened out version. The logical layer is there to take care of the you know, data duplication and row duplication there. So with the we can open this up here, but with the new logical layer here, if I go and actually just click on this New York City population bar and go ahead and click on view data right here, you'll see that here's the orders table of all the data that makes up New York City right there. And then there's my population table, which is just the one record of New York City right there. So it's, you know, it's not going to show you that row duplication because it's not occurring necessarily. Oops, you're right. I'm not sharing. Hold on. Boom. Okay, let's go through that one more time here. So in Tableau, this is the new data model feature here. If I head over and just click View Data on my my top bar right here, it's going to show me the orders table right here of all the data that makes up the orders table for New York City. And then here's all the data from the population table that makes up New York City right there. So it's because it's kind of avoiding the row duplication, you're not going to be able to see that on there. So view data has changed just a little bit in the fact that because it's not a flat data set, you don't have to you don't get to look at it just a flattened out data set. You're looking at the two tables separately of the records that show up in that in these marks. All right, let me end the show. Oops, let me pull up the participants in Q&A. Right, done. Yeah, Maria wants to know, is there a good place to send users to learn about the new data model? You can see them getting confused. Yes, so they're just, the default answer here, but the Tableau website right here has already kind of updated. If we go to learning and then free training videos right here, we can do the connecting to data. You can see that now, if we go over to the free training videos on the Tableau website, under connecting to data, relationships is already there. There's already a free training video about 20 minutes long, about 17 minutes long, right there, that you're able to kind of just pop open and watch right there. Let me just sign in really quick, but it kind of kicks it off, walks you through exactly what you're wanting to see right there. And so it's a good place for education right there. Just go click watch now. And be able to see that, and then also just the help documentation. So yeah, the Tableau data model, kind of just reading this in depth and kind of playing with it, right, and kind of understanding that. These are the two places I would direct you. There's a lot of great blog posts out there, but it's always nice to just kind of hear it from the horse's mouth, which is Tableau right there. They'll walk you through a demo and really just walk you through how you can utilize these relationships on the fly. Right there. And then Adam wants to know, Adam's no longer on here, but just wants to know, do we have recommendations for naming Tableau assets? So specifically data sources, dimensions, measures, and workbooks. I'm actually really bad at naming content. That's my big Tableau weakness right there. So I would say, it's something, especially if you're sharing it with a lot of users right there, always name your content what is going to be most easily searchable for all of your end users. That's my biggest thing right there. Don't always just lay it all out right there. Don't be like, this is the finance data with sales and profit and quarterly earnings, and like just use that. And then also Tableau Server has the use of tags. I would use those tags quite a bit, because even if even if it's not in the title of the workbook, you can actually tag certain keywords that'll show up in search. And I would do that right there. Good questions. Any other questions from those people hanging out about anything? Awesome. Okay. Well, how about this? Unless there's any more questions, let's go and just feel free to end the session today. So, James, again, thank you so much for talking today and walking us through that journey. That's awesome, and thanks everyone for hanging out afterwards. We got a new message here. Oh yeah. So thanks for everyone hanging out and asking those extra questions. And yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone next month. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Have a good weekend.